Hi everyone, this is the Shop Stool Podcast, episode 13 of season 3. As always, I'm going to start by introducing my two co-hosts. Joey, how's it going?
I'm good. Robin, how are you?
Not too bad, thanks. And Bryan, how are you?
Good, mate, yeah. It's been a while.
It has. So, my name's Robin, everyone. Thanks for joining the show, and it has been a couple weeks since we did a show. It's probably been a month.
Yeah.
No, it's been
Close to.
Because
it's been a while since the three of us have done one. We did the last guest show.
That's right.
Yeah. With
Jim. Yep.
That was a cool show. I really, really enjoyed that show.
Yep.
He seems like such a rad. Like, he's the type of guy that I'd want to go and just hang out with and have a beer. He's just really cool to hang out with.
Just tire kick in his shop.
Yeah. And it's amazing since we had him on the show, because I'd been following for a while, actually quite a while before we had him on the show. I started looking at his pieces a lot more when they pop up on Instagram, and I've got this like new appreciation for them now that I've had a chat to the guy and heard his story. So yeah, I guess we should start with catching up then. Who's going to go first? Bryan, I saw a very interesting thing on your Instagram with it looked like one of your star maps panels.
Oh yeah.
Sheet.
But with like just a square sheet. Yeah, what was that?
Yeah, that's a lid for one of my jewelry boxes that I'm doing for a client. So I finished one of those last month or the month before maybe. This year is just a blur to me. But it's another jewelry box. So star map located to the client's birthday, and
Is it going to have a secret compartment like the other one?
Yeah,
cool.
Same thing. So I'm going to change a little bit about the position of the magnets and the strength of the magnets and just try to fine tune it. But it's pretty much identical to the last jewelry box.
Awesome. Yeah. That's a cool little difference for that kind of niche market of new parent, where you can put the secret message in for the kids down the track.
Yeah,
it is.
I like that.
And that's Tassie Blackwood. So yeah, I've had a fair bit of, having barely used it in the last, God, how long have I been in business? 10 years? 9 years? Having barely used it, I'm not using it. I've had like 3 or 4 pieces in a row out of it.
Yeah.
Because you said you really liked it, didn't you?
It's really nice, yeah. It's definitely it's a different timber to use. Like, the characteristics of it are really unique. Like, it's a lot softer than many other Australian hardwoods, but it's kind of gummy as well. So you've got to have super sharp planer blades. Sandpaper burns on it really easily. So slow your sander down, go through the grits, or use a card scraper or something. But yeah, it's a really beautiful timber, and it's properly iridescent. Like, when the light catches it, it's got a real depth to it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm impressed, and that's all the hydro wood stuff, the stuff that's salvaged from the bottom of the lake.
And the Blackwood's hydro wood as well?
Yeah, Blackwood's hydro wood.
Oh, is that like double the price for Blackwood then?
It's actually not.
No?
It used to be. It feels as though, I don't know how they deal with stock levels and things of the of the hydro wood, but it
can't
feels
really
as
rely
though
on a supply chain for that.
I tell you what, that when I go to a timber yard, so I get mine from Whelan's in Port Melbourne. They've actually always had it in stock, and they have multiple sizes, and it's been reliable, whereas other places where I've been going to get it haven't had it. So yeah, I don't know. And the price used to be a lot higher than just normal standard Tassie Blackwood, and now it feels as though they've sort of leveled out a little bit. And then you get the story about it's come from the bottom of a lake, which clients tend to like.
Yep.
Yeah. But so that's the same timber that I used for my tambour cabinets, which
I was going to ask about,
are finally done and under blankets in my workshop now until I can legally install them.
Oh shit!
Yes, of course.
It's very frustrating. So I'm just hoping that we don't get any crazy out of nowhere 40-degree days in Melbourne in the next month or so to cook them.
They're completely done, finished, everything.
Yeah, completely done. So yeah, they came out really good.
That's exciting.
Definitely happy that I ran a few prototypes of the corners and the tongues and things. I don't know if you've seen I did like a series of rambling long videos of it on Instagram to try to explain the process, because I had gone looking for long rambling videos and couldn't find any, and was sort of having to pick and choose little tips that I found online. So
on a slightly similar tangent, you didn't happen to catch the video from Simone Yitch with her tambour door dining table?
Simone Yitch.
No, probably
I don't know
not.
that name, no.
She got. I think she kind of.
Wait, hang on. A tambour dining table?
I was trying
Yeah,
to work
it
this
is
one out
the
as well.
best thing I've ever seen ever. It's so cool. It's she worked with the guys Adam Savage and the guys at Tested, and she did a bunch of work with them.
Adam
and
Savage is like the Mythbusters guy.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And so she's got a channel. She's had a channel for yonks. She's now working out of San Francisco, and she just does these. She's known for her shitty robots, which just do nothing, just for fun.
Isn't
stuff.
her name Simone? It starts with a G.
Yeah, it's pronounced Yitch.
Okay,
I believe.
that's why I didn't.
I think I'm saying
pick
it
up in the
right.
first time. Yeah, she's
everyone
the one
thinks
with the
Gertz.
brain
Everyone
tumor.
thinks Gertz or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had the brain tumor, and anyway, so she wanted a dining table where she could have a dining table and do her puzzles as well, and so she wanted to be able to fold back somehow the dining table top and keep her puzzles in the tabletop. And so the whole tabletop is a tambour door which goes underneath, and then inside it she made all these cammed levers and stuff which lift up the inner table, so her puzzles now flush at the top. And she's got these big brass wheels on the side of it which bring it up and down, and it sounds steampunky and weird, but as a product, it's just like it's the only product I've seen of hers that I was just like, I would probably buy that. It's just such a cool object, and I think she could make gazillions of dollars if she could work out how to mass produce it. It took her months to make it and make it work because it kept, obviously jamming and all sorts of ridiculous stuff. But anyway, just such an awesome use of tambour.
Yeah.
To have them flat and be supporting and all the other issues that come with that.
YouTube recommended that to me. I did see it and it didn't. Now that you've explained it, it's a very different story. I'll probably go and watch it, but the thumbnail didn't quite work for me.
Yeah.
So Simone, if you're listening to our show, get it together.
The videos are so quirky. I just watch them for just a giggle. But this one really stuck out to me as like, holy crap, this is awesome.
Right. I will add it to my watch list.
Yeah. Sorry, carry on about your work.
But yeah, the tambour thing, I was like, as a first attempt, I was pretty happy. There's not too many things that I would have changed about it. The ability to fine tune the track using the shaper definitely helped get things right and made sure there was no binding. It's a lot of work doing very fine tambour strips. I think if I was going to do it again, I might. I like the aesthetic of the thin strips, but I might make them slightly thicker and change the radius of the curve.
Bigger radius.
I had proper RSI on my wrists from breaking every edge, hand sanding every edge, pre-finishing every edge, so that when you glue it to the canvas, it doesn't there was 520 strips or something like that. That's a lot of edges. So yeah, it starts to, you think, material wise, it's just like the material cost is just a sheet of plywood in those doors, and then you add in the labor cost, and you're like, that took me nearly a week. So yeah, there's some things that I would change about it, but overall the finish was really nice, and yeah, it slides pretty smooth.
But that's very much where the value is in the time.
Yeah, true, but yeah, I still can't feel my wrist properly.
It doesn't help.
It's all very well getting the value and the payment for it, I suppose, but you'd rather be able to make maybe another one the following week, whereas you probably can't really.
No, there's no way you could churn them back to back, unless you had a team of interns that were prepared to bleed and I actually sanded through my fingertips and bled all over it.
Hate that.
I don't know. I'm working on a project which involves cutting many thin strips and then bending them and forming a radius. And doing the basic math, we're talking 800 to 900 of these 100 mil, 5 mil thin strips. And
you're giving me PTSD here, Robin.
And when I told my wife what I was doing, she said to me, "Well, that sounds like a lot of work for a result that's gonna be cool." But as I said to her, that's where the value is. This has to be a long project. There is no way to quickly produce this, and I think it's the same thing with the tambour doors.
Did you have to do any specific? Did you talk to the clients about the fact that tambour is, not as easy as any other kind of door?
No, it was me that pushed it. It was.
So you couldn't really complain and say,
no.
"Hey, look, I busted my balls for you. So you better bloody like it."
No. I had originally designed something completely different. It was going to be like a sort of a tessellated front on it, so it was going to have like a twist. Mm-hmm. Do you know Padula? You guys interviewed him before I was a host.
Yeah.
So yeah, Nick has done this sort of dresser unit that you've seen his YouTube, where it's sort of carved out.
Yeah.
I was going to do a similar kind of profile, but in like hardline strips. Mm-hmm. So that there's like a diagonal tessellation across, but then you look through it and you see into the cabinet. Mm-hmm. So it's just a series of strips. And I went through about 4 or 5 different sketches and CAD models, and I just couldn't get it to the point where I was happy with it. And I went, tambour.
Yeah, right.
Looks simple enough. It's just a sheet of plywood.
Yeah. Like when I compare the amount of time that it would have taken to have done the tessellated slats versus the tambour. But yeah, it's one of those things. Like I think it's a good piece, so it was worth the effort. Or there's 2 cabinets, so yeah.
Have you haven't showed off any final pictures of it, have you?
No, well, I'm waiting to try to get it
on the wall.
Yeah, so I'm repainting the wall in the building next to me to mount it and shoot it.
Right.
But just trying to get a photographer and not breach COVID restrictions and all that kind of stuff, yeah. Because we've had a fun month in Melbourne. I don't know if you've seen, but we are now officially the most locked down city in the world.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We've had tradie protests shutting down the Westgate Bridge. We've had a 6.0 earthquake.
That was fun. A good week.
So just out of nowhere. Just kick it while it's down, hey?
Yeah. Funny thing was, the earthquake was probably the highlight of most people's week, apart from the guy that owned the one building that collapsed from it.
that building got so much press coverage, it's unreal. Well, that and the bricks that came off it on the floor next to it, yeah.
You did 3 hours away from the epicenter, and none of the buildings there came down. This one building on Chapel Street. Yeah.
It was probably due to come down, I think.
Yeah,
probably. Yeah.
With the timbre, I noticed on one of your, what I assume is the prototypes, you did it with a sheet of plywood, and it didn't have any backing on the doors.
I had actually on the prototype. I just used a really strong tape.
Yeah, duct tape or something.
Yeah.
Because what I thought you'd done is, you just, when you take a sheet of plywood and you just cut thin strips into it and then
like
it
a curve. Yeah.
Yeah, I assumed that's what you'd just done. And then in the later one, you used the fabrics. That's why I wanted to ask,
Yeah, I don't know long term whether...
Would that just eventually split?
I reckon, I tell you what, if it was a big enough radius, you could probably get away with it. If it was a big enough radius and the strips were sort of wide enough that there was enough curve, you probably could get away with it, but the fabric route is just so easy and fail safe. Like, I was surprised at how good it was. Like, just when you got the jig and sort of laid the strips into it, and then it was just roll on the glue, fabric, iron it, and it was good.
Okay, so it's all about that jig, right? Because that was going to be one of the
the ironing I think made a big difference as well, just to speed up the cure of the glue.
It's one of those tried and true things that has been around for generations, and there's a reason why you keep doing it, because it works.
Yeah. Because I had wondered whether tape or a vinyl or something like that would work. And maybe they would, like depending on how you sealed the back of the timber. But
do you think
it just felt as though you're trying to reinvent something that doesn't need to be reinvented?
Do you think you could do a tambour where you have a negative detail between each of the pieces? If you had I'm just wondering, if you were to do some other type of tambour, Like I was thinking about if you were to try to introduce color, some crazy modern color to a classic piece like that. If you had like a 2 or 3 millimeter gap between each of your tambour panels, and the back was say like rubber sheeting or something.
Yeah. Yeah,
and it was coloured, and you'd glue it on, and you'd have all these like strips, and as it goes around the corner, you'd have this bigger flash of colour as it goes around the corner. I don't think I've ever seen that, but it just seems like an interesting idea where you could introduce shadows and negative details between each of the slats. It'd be a pain in the ass to glue up, but
you'd need to be so careful with the gluing process. Because
you'd have to have
spacers and have it face down when you're gluing up, so you can't actually see the spacers.
You'd have to have CNC a whole jig with all the little spacers like routed out of a sheet of ply, and then just place each panel in, and then you'd have to glue the thing on top. Still, I think it would be an interesting look to have a go at.
Yeah. But that'll be me done with tambour doors for the next couple of months, I would say.
Yes.
And with when the strips come around the corner, so when they're coming around the radius, how are they not binding? I can't because the strip.
So it's all to do with getting the width of the strip to the depth of the tongue.
Wait,
so the width of the tambour strips has got to be narrow enough that it can flex around the radius.
Flex around
and the flex around it, yeah.
No, sorry, not the strip. So the strip of timber is not flexing.
No. But with the backing, like if you're looking at it in plan, that it flexes around the corner with the backing on it. And then it's the width of the rebated strip to the depth of the tongue, like the thickness of the tongue. So you want to make the strip, like I had it about 1 mil wider than the depth of the tongue.
Okay.
So and as it sort of tessellates around the corner, you don't pinch.
And that tongue, are the edges quite rounded?
Yeah.
Or does it not need to be?
I think you do have to, yeah. I had a few people asking me that. I chamfered them down pretty heavily in the end, so that it was maybe only the tongue was probably 6 mil, and it's maybe only sitting on 2 mil of the tongue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I reckon you could put it to a point if you really wanted, with it being plywood as well. It would probably be okay, but yeah,
I reckon that would end up gouging a groove over time.
I don't know.
This plywood's pretty soft compared to your hardwood.
Yeah, and the weight of the doors, again, if they were taller and there's a bit more mass in them, these are only like 250 or 240 mil or something like that. So they're not that heavy.
There's no weight.
But yeah, that definitely made a difference. Chamfering those edges, and then also making sure that in the top track is literally just trying to keep it from moving laterally, so it's not touching any of the timber in the top of that track. Yeah, it's like 2 mil shy of it.
Yep.
And then do you wax the strip, the runner?
Yep, waxed
track,
it.
I should say.
Considered, I waxed it and polished it, and I sanded it to about, I can't remember if it was 240 or 320, but it was something reasonably high. I considered doing a Teflon. I actually did that in one of my other cabinets with the sliding doors. I put a Teflon adhesive tape onto the bottom of the doors, and it worked really, really nicely. But just with the tambour and the number of pieces, I'm like, it's bound to fail eventually. So it's just trying to make things fail safe is always like, that's always at the front of my mind when it's doing a piece like this, that, you know, it's not like a dining table. Yeah, you want it to be a lifelong piece, but maybe the client might have it for 15, 20 years or something like that. Whereas something like this, they want to last for the lifetime that they have it. Yep. So yeah, I did the little dovetail track to be able to test fit the doors, which gave me a bit of security that when I was gluing it up, I knew that I could take the drawers back out.
Really difficult, and I don't think we should even try and explain it on the podcast. You should go dive back through your Instagram feed to have a look at how you managed to get the tambour door in and out without having to go through the back. Super easy, simple solution that I don't think anyone else has thought of. So kudos.
Cheers. Yeah, it was one of those things that when you start thinking about it, I kept changing the way I was going to do it, and the way I was going to make it was I'm going to use I think I ended up doing it just with. I didn't do it with a shaper. I just did it with a hand router and a guide, and just gradually crept up on it, and then test fitted the dovetail. Yeah. Anyway, it was a fair bit of work, and then trying to work out whether I was just going to let friction keep it in there or whether I was going to glue it in there, and I ended up going with a little sort of concealed brass screw.
Oh, yeah, cool. I was going to suggest, magnet even. A super glued in magnet.
Oh, don't worry. I thought completely overthought down those lines as well. I just figured it's a brass screw. It's never going to be seen. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, it's been a busy old month, actually. I've got a fair bit on. A couple of other coffee tables, doing a few of my laminated plywood tables, which, again, there's not that much material cost in them, but there's a huge amount of labor. But it's kind of good that you can set it up in a workbench on the corner and just sort of glue an extra few strips up, let it cure, go and work on something else. It's horrendous trying to do those when you have nothing else on, because it's literally sitting around watching paint dry. And doing some awards trophies for a client, and a few other irons in the fire. So it's going to be a busy. I feel when things open up in Melbourne, it's about to get crazy again.
Yeah, Joey, you seem to just be there's something new every week with you. I don't know if it's just the way Instagram's promoting it, but it's possible to keep up.
Well, that's pretty much how it was, because so it seems like it's been forever, because I guess the last thing, or the first thing that we haven't talked about is my kind of weird exploded. I talked about it on the last time we had a conversation, but I made that kind of 3-drawer, what do you call it, exploded stand, exoskeleton thing.
I did have to laugh when we talked about it in the show. You said, I've got this idea. I'm thinking of putting something, and then 2 days later, there it was.
I was a bit shocked to see the time frame.
I was already kind of halfway through bits of it when we had talked, and it just kind of came together, because at that time we were in hard lockdown, so I had nothing better to do. I was just 8 hours a day on that thing. So I think I made it in a week with 8-hour days. And so
back to the lockdown. So you're now in Melbourne stage lockdown effectively now, right? You can go to work.
Yeah, I can work. I'm allowed in people's homes, which seems odd, but whatever.
Right. We're not, but yeah.
The only thing I can't do is leave Auckland, which is a whole another dilemma, completely kind of separate, because we bought a new house and I can't go there.
I wanted to get an update on how that's
going. So that's a different thing. So maybe I could do that afterwards. But so I made that cool thing, and with the new house, we've designed as a spot that's going to fit that little exo stand, and I really was going to be right in the middle of kind of the lounge. There's this little piece of wall where that's going to sit, and it's going to look awesome. And we needed a dining table for said new house, so I made a stupid Purple Heart dining table.
I love that thing. Jesus,
I love
cool.
it. I just don't really like the purple, but
well,
I look at it every morning. I'm like, it would have looked so much nicer if it was like oaky or walnutty or some other color. But now that I've made one, I think there's a whole other subject that I think we should talk about that we've only got so many hours in the day. But the sustainability of working in thick veneers like that, it kind of opens, the sky's the limit. And where you guys recently, it's been announced that they're going to stop milling natives at some point.
Don't get me fucking started
we're not
on
starting
this.
on it, but that's going to change supply, and probably something similar, I imagine at some point it's going to get to the supply issues that we have here with natives. And then there's the problems with getting materials here into New Zealand, specifically just getting things on shipping containers is difficult, and 300% price increase on shipping to get a container here. I've been thinking seriously about how I'm going to proceed with my business when some basic materials that were relatively affordable are now like super off the limit of most people. And so I really want to look at something where I'm going to start veneering a lot of my own stuff. The only problem is because I want to be able to provide what I do now, but using as best I can products I can get here. I don't want to have to rely on an international trade as much as I have been. So I can get timbers and I can veneer pretty easily. I can make my own thick veneers.
So to people that haven't actually seen it on your Instagram, this is torsion box. So this is not just a straight veneer onto substrate. This is going above and beyond. And I think a lot of people associate, and when I first started making things as well, the association with the word veneer was a cheaper way of doing something.
Yeah.
And this has nothing to do with that. This is about, I mean, you could use Nathan Day and Daniel Poole and guys like real top Australian makers use torsion boxes so they can get outrageous spans in their tables because they're not sagging under the weight of the timber.
That's right.
And it's not a 1 mil, or less than a 1 mil veneer. This is a seriously
5 mil, 6 mil,
chunky veneer that can be sanded and refinished. Yeah, so I think it's a really smart exploration you've done.
I would love to do more tables in that style, but also because I make a lot of cabinets, and I hate relying on just buying plywood from Europe. And the price is just constantly going up. I mean, I'm looking for basic poplar plywood. I'm paying $155 a sheet, and it's like the cost of cabinets is just outrageous. And my only problem is I can't get I can't really get any plywood here that's pressed here anymore. Like we used to have a good pine plywood, but the factories seem to have just stopped producing for like way back a year ago. So really my only option for substrate is MDF, which we got plenty of. It's just a matter of do I really want to start going down that road where I start putting really nice veneers on MDF, because it throws up a whole lot of problems. MDF is a fine substrate for what it is, but when you're trying to sell like premium quality stuff, it's very difficult to tell somebody that underneath that is MDF and there's a veneer on top. You just sound like IKEA, but it's completely different. But it's very difficult to explain to somebody that what you're doing is
just a perception thing.
Better. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I've often said to people, I've said to people, look, I can do this table for half the price if we use veneer, and they say, oh, I'm not using veneer, it's cheap shit. And I'm like, wait, you give me like another sentence to explain yourself. But when you explain to someone, hey, you know that stuff you see in a museum, it's been around for 400 years, it's all veneered. Why do you think it's still hanging about? Because it's being actually made properly.
All the Danish stuff that people are coveting, and like it's all veneer.
Yeah. The substrates are usually handmade plywood, but we don't have to use handmade plywood. Well, that might get to that here. But
how did you find it, Joey, in terms of the additional labor cost to create that torsion box versus the savings in material?
Well, for Purple Heart, I mean, it's an awful test subject. Any other timber, I'd say, any day it's well worth going through the issue. I thought legitimately that making the torsion box part would be the big time crunch, and I made that whole torsion box glued together in about an hour and a half. And I was like,
shit, really?
I was like, oh, that's done, ticked off.
Just using a dado?
Just using the dado blade. I just cut all my strips, cut them all to the same length, and then I clamped them together and just went through on the sliding table saw, just dadoed them all. Once I had my dado blade width dialed in, it was just a matter of just making all the cuts. And they just snapped together, put some glue in there, and that was it.
And was that would have been about a full sheet of plywood worth of...
Yes, it was one sheet of ply.
Okay.
So that was $155 worth of ply. Yep. And then my piece of Purple Heart, that was around $300, I think I said. It's awful stuff to work with. I mean, Jesus, don't try and make anything with it other than like a little plug or some little fancy, tiny piece that you're putting just because you want some purple.
Why is that?
It's
hard.
I think you've said in the past it's very splintery and chip out.
It's hard it's hard, but it's not the hardest thing. It cuts reasonably well. It burns quite easily. Any dullness will show up. Heat in the drum sander will cause it to burn, and when it burns, it just goes bright purple, which is a pain in the butt. It does even out. I put the table out in the sun for 2 hours before I finished it, and it just evened all the color out. That's how it works. It's photosensitive, and so when you cut it, it's brown. Sit it in the sun, goes purple, and so
Really?
yeah, so it goes bright purple with lots of sun, lots of UV, and then if you keep it in the sun, it'll go grey silver. If you keep it in just ambient light in a room, like a dining table would be, it will just darken. The purple will just darken and become richer, and it will become much like an aubergine color. It gets quite dark, but it retains its purple color. It's kind of like cherry does that as well, and Iroko, same kind of photosensitive timber. But the grain in Purple Heart is like so interlocked, like you hear about interlocked grain, but this stuff, I mean, it's not. It doesn't even have a direction. It seems like it's up and down and backwards, and you don't even want to put a hand plane near it.
Have you got a spiral thicknesser?
No,
You don't?
no. I mean, that would definitely have helped, but from what I hear, it's still not ideal. I mean, you can't. I think in general, if you've got a spiral head, a lot of people could go straight to like a sanding finish, almost completely finished off a new spiral head. But that's not the case with Purple Heart. You're going to get some tear out. You need to do some serious sanding, and I found that sanding was what the best tool. Card scraper worked somewhat, but still, I was getting
to resharpen it every 20 minutes.
I was getting tear out with this card scrapers, and
Right.
I would get maybe like 6 good scrapes, and then it just starts sliding across the top, and you've got to go flatten it off and put a new curl on it, put a new hook on it, and I was like, this sucks balls. I'm just going to hit it with I think I only had 150 grit sandpaper because we were in lockdown at the time, so I just spent.
That's what I got.
I think I used a box full of 150 grit, and that was it.
Well, that's why I got my drum sander. There's a timber here in Australia, Moreton Bay ash, which is very much the same. I have never been able to successfully thickness it, and that's with a spiral. Well, it's a segmented.
Your segmented one, yeah.
It's not. They're not at an angle, so it's slightly. But still, never been able to run it through the thicknesser without chip out, and that's why I just went to a drum sander. It was a very expensive but completely worth it investment.
Yeah, so that's my workings. I've got so much work coming at the moment.
But you love the table, but you hate the colour.
Yeah, I would do some things differently. I made some stuff ups that have not reared their ugly head, but I have become aware of. So mainly just my glue up. I didn't have it planned properly. I didn't actually put glue between the joints of the veneer as I laid them down on the torsion box. I was just focused on getting glue on all the grids and getting the veneer down and flat, and I taped them together, but I didn't actually put glue in the join. And typically if you're veneering to like a full substrate, you can kind of get away with that because there's
Enough
glue
surface area
all the way down the joint on both sides. But because there's little voids, there's enough that the timber can just move ever so slightly, and if you're running your hand across it, you can just feel just the slightest little lump where today it's moved up a quarter of a mil or down a quarter of a mil on the join, and it's just annoying. But
I like that you did the end grain veneer as well.
That was a pain in the butt.
I'm not the
doing
only
that
person pedantic enough to do that. It's good.
I wanted to do that from the get-go because I thought, well, should I wrap the grain around? And then sometimes it just looks store-bought if you have the grain just too perfectly wrapped.
Yeah.
And so I thought I'll make it. Yeah, it just looks like vinyl that's just been stuck on there. And yeah, so went for the end grain, and it's a pain in the butt. Because end grain just sucks in glue, and I actually found, because I used black epoxy, I found that the black epoxy went through from the inside and came out the end grain, and you can't sand it off because it's all full depth. And so there you go, your stuff.
Would have ended up with a nice finish though on the end grain. I discovered that not too long ago. Doing
what's that?
So this is just a solid piece of timber for a lid. Some CA glue on the end grain.
Oh, yeah.
And then you sand it off, and you just get this amazing finish because it just fills all the pores.
That is not a bad idea, actually. I should have done that on the inside of those end grain veneers. I should have sealed them off before I glued them on.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And then I wouldn't have had bleed through come all the way through. Oh, next time.
When it's not purple hard.
Yeah, so in the middle of all that, we're trying to buy, and we bought a house that we've never even been to, and I can't go there, mainly because my workshop is on one side of this Auckland border, and the new house is on the other side of the Auckland border, and I can't travel for work backwards and forwards. I'm allowed to travel once if I'm buying a new house. I can move over the border one time, and I can't come backwards and forwards. So my parents.
Hang on. What if your wife is the client and she's commissioned you to?
Oh, I can't go across the border for anything.
What?
I can't go across the border for work.
Oh, right. Okay.
We're stuck in Auckland. We're our own little Auckland bubble.
Right.
And is that Auckland? That's Auckland Metro.
Auckland region. No, the entire from. If you look at the Auckland Supercity map, it is gigantic, and then it goes from horse farms and cow farms to the CBD.
And what area is the new place?
Waipu.
I'm looking at. Oh, there it is. Okay. Oh yeah, cool.
So, so my parents are going to go to the new place and stay there, and my dad is going to facilitate getting my new workshop built because I can't organize any of that. And so there's that brings up so many issues, but I'm just going to have to deal with the fact that I can't get to my new property. And once the workshop is ready, we will shift the workshop, and then assuming if there's still a border up, I just won't be able to do any work in Auckland. So that's just is what it is.
Sure.
So that'd be fun.
I see it's an hour and a half out of Auckland. Is that about
What's
right?
that, sorry?
It's about an hour and a half out of Auckland.
It's something like that from the CBD, yeah. I'm trying to transition my work away from right in the middle of Auckland. So
Okay.
I don't want to just don't want to have to do the travelling if I can avoid it. If I can, there's plenty of houses going in the area. I should be able to get enough work, but we'll see.
And now you've bought it. You've got it.
Yeah.
No more waiting on contracts.
At the moment, they've got deposit, and then we're about to. I think Monday, sometime next week. It's actually getting keys. So.
Okay, yeah, so it's pretty much there. Hopefully nothing goes wrong.
Virtual keys that you can't use.
Yeah, we don't even know how we're going to get the keys. We're not allowed to touch the land agent or whatever, so it's interesting. But
so with that in mind, did you say when the move was going to happen?
I don't know when I'm moving, although I've got less than a year now to build a workshop and be in, because that's how long a lease I have on the old workshop.
And they don't have an end date for the lockdown?
No, there's no time frames.
Probably likely December, right? November, December.
You're thinking months, yeah.
At this stage, they're saying we might drop down to a level 2.5. We're currently in level 3.75.
3.75B, Joe.
Yeah. We might get there in 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So maybe in the new year. But what the Prime Minister has said is that the borders around Auckland is going to remain. Even if all the levels in the country are the same, Auckland is still going to be ring-fenced. So
Oh shit.
it seems like no one knows what the hell is happening. Fun times.
Yeah.
Makes life interesting.
Not too much-
On top, anyway, the
not too
plus
much you
side
can
of all
do.
that is that there's so much work. It's stupid. So
It's weird, isn't it? Looking back to our first COVID podcast where we were like, oh my God, how are makers going to survive? How is
We're all gonna be on the streets. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it's interesting. It certainly is interesting. Like, I think almost a lot of what we talked about kind of happened, but then life just carried
really
on
did,
at the same time. It just normal life just had to carry on. So it has done.
All the supply chain stuff came totally true.
Yeah.
And I look at it now and I'm getting emails from Highfully saying, price rise immediate, like 7% on all our, it's like, far out. When does the price go back down? When we get supply or that's it up for good?
That's it. My suppliers are emailing me once a month at the moment, and usually it's a 10% increase every month at the moment.
Yeah.
But my hardware, like draw runners and everything, just went up on the 1st, 5 days ago, went up 15 to 20%. And, that's along with everything else that's just constantly going up. So, yeah.
It'll be
Just gets more
interesting to
expensive.
see what this does going forward, because I watched a really interesting video about how this has highlighted an issue with the way we do industry in the world. So yes, COVID kicked it off, but this has been a disaster waiting to happen because our supply chain runs so thin. So it'll be interesting to see how that's going to evolve, and if there will be, because we've talked about this in the past about how the price won't come down, and I wonder if those, they'll keep the prices inflated because then people can hold more stock and try and fix this, because everyone's going to be on edge. All the businesses are going to be on edge.
I mean, this whole subject is why I started thinking so deeply about how can I maintain my business if supply chain issues really kick off and get worse, like something that is happening in the UK at the moment. If it gets that bad, what can I do to supply myself from local, resources? And so I'm just, I don't have a lot of options, actually. I'm limited, but I can only do what I can do. So I'm actively looking at ways to kind of bring my work into a more, I hate to keep using the word sustainable, but it really is sustainable on a lot of different levels.
Yeah, because it's not just a green sustainability, it's financial sustainability.
That's right. That's right. It's just sustaining a lifestyle that is similar to what I am used to as well. Yeah.
Before we wrap up, you mentioned, and now this is the perfect time maybe to talk about it, so we can't get too far into it, but you talked about in Australia native timbers not being milled anymore.
Oh, you're unleashing it.
So what's changed recently?
Bryan will be the one to tell you, but maybe he shouldn't speak. From what I understand, and I think this at this stage only relates to Jarrah, or is it other species? It's most species, most native species,
all native timber in Western Australia.
By which year?
They brought it forward ahead of us. I think they're 2023, is it? Like, it's not that far away.
Oh, really? Only 2 years or something?
I think Victoria, when they announced it and we spoke about it on the podcast, I think they were talking about like 2030.
So, off
the top of my head. And
anyway, the plan is to severely either stop or severely limit the milling of native trees.
No, it is definitively stop.
Right.
And it will be plantation pine only.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
What is pine like that grows in Australia? Because it's bad enough here.
Same as pine in New Zealand, unless you're talking about, like, obviously there's hewn pine and...
What do I mean? Like, our growth rings are like 30 mil apart. I mean, it must grow faster in Australia.
I don't know. Well,
I guess in Melbourne and Victoria it's probably...
But I mean, where they're talking about planting it is sort of obviously in the ring around Perth and going down to southwestern, like around Albany and down that way, which are going to be more and more prone to bushfires. And you're planting pine, which secretes turpentine,
Yeah.
It just makes no sense on any level whatsoever. And we've spoken to Andy about it before, and just this whole greenwashing that's going on with it, and people standing behind it saying this is a great green idea. You know, think about the animals, think about the native timber. It's like, are you fucking kidding? Like,
my brain's going to that. So
yeah, but that's the natural response. And you look at the Premier.
Why is it not the right response?
Firstly, because to operate any kind of industry and building operations in Australia, we need either a hardwood timber or an alternative to it. Like, you need to make some kind of composite, environmentally friendly composite that you can take pine, chip it, and amalgamate it and make it waterproof.
Well, and termite proof or something that's going to stop bugs. Yeah.
And fireproof. Okay. So we're always going to need that type of material. And the alternative to keeping our native forests intact is we're going to have to import it from elsewhere. So you're literally just taking a problem and shifting it overseas. And where it will be shifted to overseas will be the developing world, where it's not easy to monitor these things.
Because somebody who's building a house are still going to want a wooden floor.
Or a deck, or
and so where does that timber come from? Well, I tell you what, here, if our authorities want some outdoor timber that they want to last forever, like on power poles, they use purple heart. And that comes from South America, and God knows how it's been milled.
Yep.
Okay, but houses are still being built out of pine at the moment. So I agree with you. The floor, that's fair enough if you've got a
stud framing is being, yeah.
But your frames are still pine, so the percentage of that floor is such a low amount compared to the rest of the house. And I don't know if this might be fairly naive to say this, but I have hoop pine flooring. Now, would that be a different type? That's not the type of pine that they're going to grow, I would assume.
Plantation pine, I think there's about 5 or 6 different species that they're intending on planting. I'm sure some
typically
of it will be
Pinus radiata.
But some will be hoop pine, I would think, and they'll just... It doesn't make any sense when you can grow a native eucalypt species as quickly as you could grow hoop pine.
Yeah, and why not just grow keep growing
and maintain biodiversity native. And all? Like the biodiversity is the key thing. You look at the forests, the plantation forests around Central Island, Central North Island, New Zealand, and they are an environmental disaster.
There's nothing there apart from possums. I don't know if you've ever been in a pine forest, Robin, but there's no light. You don't get light through. There's no undergrowth. It's just black. There's no sun, and it's great. I mean, the trees obviously love it, but nothing else does.
There's no birds, no ferns, no
pretty much no
rodents, it's no flowers.
That I appreciate. It's a monoculture.
Because as I understand it, don't they use Tassie oak? Isn't it a lot of framing made out of Tassie oak?
Most of the framing here would be pine.
Now,
most of it, you'll still get structural members made out of Tassie oak, like larger posts and beams and things like that. But a lot of
doing something architectural.
Something that's exposed. But most beams and things like that are now like LVL, like manufactured beams. But like we will need hardwoods, and it's fine if they think that this is the best way to proceed. Okay, well, where do we get hardwood or a replacement material from it? And I've heard zero. There's no answer to it that anybody's prepared to give.
Kicking the can down the road.
Your argument about look, we're like let's just take what we do as furniture makers. And what does the government think it will happen? Do they just expect that you just go down to the furniture shop that imports everything that's been ripped off in China? I mean, is that because they don't care where they get their wood?
Pretty much.
So I mean, it's very close. I feel like with the information I have, it's super close-minded of the government to say, that's it. We're not cutting our trees down. We're just going to buy them from somewhere else.
That's exactly what it is. And the feeling that I would have is that it's massively driven by construction, and leaning on government for cheap pine. and it's so short-sighted. Like, I'm a greenie. Fuck's sake, I was a member of Junior Greenpeace and all that kind of stuff. Like, I like animals, I like trees. I donate 1% of everything that comes into my business to planting more trees. But how people are brainwashed by this into thinking that this is a sensible, sustainable idea is just beyond me. And I'm happy to talk. If anybody wants to DM me and ask me for scientific papers on it, I've got lots of them, and I'll send them all on to you. Because, yeah, it just makes no sense.
They're presumably going to have to expand on the plantations as well, right?
Expand
to
to
keep
what?
up with the demand. Expand.
Well, they don't have any, do they now? Or?
No, their plan is to plant them on cleared land. So they're not going to, yeah. But it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
makes no sense.
It's interesting.
And it still takes time for those trees to reach maturity.
Well,
so
I'd say, I mean, all you have to do is look at where we are in New Zealand. Yes, a whole crapload of it was clear cut, and it was milled originally super badly, but now, and the knock-on effects of that are that there is ridiculously limited supply and almost really no native timber available. I mean, it's available, but it's not really.
yeah, you wouldn't be able to say to a client, I make Remu dining tables, because the price fluctuations and availability would be, yeah.
Well, in my, 10, 11, 12 years of making furniture, I've never seen a consistent supply of Remu. Up until, like, this year, I was told that my supplier had a warehouse full of it. And that's the first time that I'm being aware of that I could probably safely tell a client I could source it. And so that, I'm not sure why that is. Maybe, there's a bunch of windfall, or there was a bunch of selected trees that needed to come down, but that's just the nature of how they're doing it here. Otherwise, the only thing available here is pine, which just turns into spaghetti as soon as you take it out of any kind of packing straps that it's under. So yeah.
No, you've unleashed the beast, Robin. You just made me angry again. It's just literally politicians just playing a popularity game. That's all it is.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. I'm glad I asked, because you've mentioned this before, Bryan, and I've never actually asked the question why, because as someone who doesn't know enough about it, my first response is, we're going to save the koalas doing this. Yeah,
save the trees, and then I'm going to not have any timber to do anything with.
Or worse than that, as you say, we're going to, flatten more
presumably
area for those
there
trees.
Must be a whole crapload of timber that is, like, a supply chain doesn't just stop. There's going to be years worth of timber around. I think you'll just see the gradual price go up as supply is removed, and then so the problem with the plan is that no one's going to see the full effect of it probably for 5 to 10 years, and then it's going to dry up, and people are going to start saying, how come I can't get a gum floor for my house now? I've got to have like vinyl on particle board or some bollocks.
Yep.
And that's where we should have started planting trees 20 years ago.
We've got to import it from China. The price of oil is just quadrupled. That means my vinyl kitchen is now going to cost me more than a Tasmanian oak one would have done. It's
that's a whole different scenario. Yes.
All
okay,
right.
We'll call it here.
We are over time. We've got to stop.
Okay.
Maybe we should have waited. All right, so to everyone watching,
rant over.
To everyone watching, if you did enjoy the show, please go ahead and give it a rating on iTunes. It really does help us out. Shop Stool Podcast is available on most podcast apps. Joey and Bryan, thanks again for hanging out, and we'll see you guys next time.
See you guys.
Cheers, fellas. See ya.